Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the unveiling and dedication ceremony of the new monument placed here for the Union veterans of the Ridge Cemetery. Today's ceremony is organized by Joshua L. Chamberlain, Camp Number 69, Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, of which I am the patriotic instructor. I'd also like to point out a few other camp officers. This is our department commander, Larry Bonney. This is our camp treasurer, Dennis Gray. And this is our camp commander, Alden Emerson. I really appreciate seeing a fine body of Americans who want to come out here and honor those who paid the ultimate sacrifice, especially for a war so long ago. Maybe there's some people here who have memories of a grandmother or a great-grandmother telling stories about these boys who wore the blue, but none of us were in the years of 1861 to 65, so it really means a lot to actually see a pretty decent crowd with everything considered of people who want to show respect for these men who served their country.
It really is remarkable when you look back at the period. Over 250 men from Bridgeton volunteered over the course of the war to go to fight, which is more than all of the other volunteers from all of our surrounding towns put together. You see the GAR doing a lot of work tracking down surviving veterans, and where are they now? How many are left?
They were the first veterans organization to actually go forth into the legislature and the Congress of this whole country to pass and support veterans benefits, the kind of stuff that American Legion members do today. And even though these men are long gone, you can still see their legacy in this cemetery, across Bridgeton, or across the country. If you see one of these little stars right here, it says veteran on it. Sometimes it'll say GAR. That's the remains of a Union soldier. These men not only served their country for those 4 long, terrible years of the war between the states, but they also came back to make sure that they would carry on the legacy of their fallen brothers in arms. So, just want to make it clear, though, that we as the Sons, not just Liam Opie, but as a camp, as a department, as a whole national organization, carry on their memory and their legacy. We're not political, we are an apolitical organization. We just have one goal in mind, and that's to preserve that legacy and that memory. So during this project, I had the fortune to research a lot about the soldiers buried here. I really got to read about where the war took them. We have a lieutenant over in the further section of the cemetery who was all the way down in South Texas, fighting in battles against the Confederate Army there near Mexico. It's amazing to me to think about that this war took farmers, mechanics, artisans, and laborers who really were born and raised in Bridgeton their entire life, and besides maybe an occasional journey to Portland to do some kind of a deal there, get some kind of equipment, God only knows at this point. Bridgeton and the Lake Region community was their world center. So imagining in 1861, where not only these men answer the calls to go and fight for the Union, but they're willing to go as far south as Texas, a place that was only recently annexed into the United States as of 1845. So it was really a whole new world for these men from this little community to go wherever Uncle Sam sent them. But in this project, reading about these veterans, their stories, I wanted the opportunity to get to know any descendants. But unfortunately, I wasn't really able to meet a lot of family, except for one soldier. Over in this section over here, near the Ingalls family obelisk, lies the remains of Private George Ingalls, George Burroughs Ingalls. He was a private in Company K of the 7th Maine Infantry. Answering the call while working as a stonemason, he decided that Uncle Sam needed him and he would go wherever he was sent. That being said, in 1864, he found himself near Spotsylvania Courthouse in Virginia. During the war, he kept 2 things with him. He kept a picture of his sister, Elizabeth, and he also kept a diary. Now, I had the privilege to meet his descendants, a nephew of his, who actually got to let me read through entries of this soldier's journal. And the Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse, which George Ingalls participated in, took place May 12th of 1864. Well, fortunately, he met his fate on that battle, and right up to the date, all through 1864, all the way up to May 11th, he wrote in his journal, but he wasn't able to write in May 12th. He paid the ultimate sacrifice. As far as I know, he's the only soldier in the cemetery who was actually killed in action. The other men either died shortly after the war or died of war-related diseases. You know, consumption was a big one, cholera, etc. But at this time, I'd like to bring up a living legacy of George Ingalls. I'd like to bring up his great-great-nephew, Andrew Sanborn, with his picture. The picture of George Ingalls that he sent home to his family, and Drew still has today. Mr. Sanborn? Thank you. This is the face of what we do. This face of a soldier, young man, only about 4 or 5 years older than me when he answered the call. This soldier paid the ultimate sacrifice, no different than his ancestors may have in the Revolutionary War, 1812, or soldiers today pay all the time. We might be a small organization, but when we hear the stories of George Ingalls, our mission as the sons of Union veterans of the Civil War amplifies. We want to preserve the memories of George Ingalls, whether he has great-great-grandchildren or anything like that. Of course, unfortunately, he was never married, never had that blessing. Doesn't matter to us, though. We want to carry on their legacy. But I'm honored to have Drew Sanborn, a man whose whole family has really come up through this ridge, through centuries. But at this time, I'd like to have Mr. Sanborn here do the honors of unveiling this monument.
Have here in front of me today is one of the very few Grand Army of the Republic record books from one of the local posts here in Western Maine. So right here we have the Bridgeton Farragut Post number 27's record book, and within it we have all kinds of accounts from the soldiers themselves of their service, you know, where they went across the country, what kind of action they saw, what their roles in the camps were, etc., etc. It's published in 1894, so we've got quite an old example here. Anything that's from this era typically has not survived. With the defunct GAR that died off after the last veteran died, Albert Wolson in 1956, These books started getting scattered all across the country. Some ended up in antique stores, some ended up in people's basements. They went all over the place. So fortunately, the Bridgeton Historical Society has been able to preserve one. On the cover, we have a few of the benefactors. Who
local businessmen who helped raise the money to buy the book. Would have been costly even back then.
So a particular page that I found interesting, if I can flip to it, was the account of Rule Dodge. He was very influential in the Farragut Post in Bridgeton, and he's one of the veterans that's actually buried in our Ridge Cemetery. He enlisted in Company I of the Maine 11th Infantry on July 22nd, 1862. Served 35 months, 11 days. And at the time that this was written, he was deceased. Now, on his gravestone, it says that he was in the 25th Maine Infantry. Now, this regiment did serve down in Virginia and in Maryland, but in occupation and garrison duty. They mostly did picket duty along the Potomac River. So when we look at these accounts, whether it's something like a GAR book, the Adjutant General records, or even local newspaper accounts, we need to make sure we accurately write down what's on there, because the 11th Maine saw action, the 25th Maine did not.
Simple things, even the company number was correct for these soldiers, because it makes a world of difference when there's that lack of attention to detail. I had camp meetings that I, of course, went to as a son, where I got advice constantly from these men who have been members since before I was born. It's still important to remember these soldiers, not just Civil War, but also 1812, the Revolution, the Spanish-American War, World War I, II, Korea, Vietnam. There are 12 veterans here of the War of 1812 and the Aroostook border war conflict who have never had the fortune to have a flag or any kind of marker for a flag placed by their graves. I know Korea is constantly called the Forgotten War, for example. Those veterans should not be forgotten. And knowing that these men formed the nucleus of veterans organizations that carry on in the noble work that the American Legion, which I'm a proud member of, knowing that it carries on that honor that those men started in 1866, it's a privilege to really be a member of these organizations.
In the corner, in one of the top corners of the monument, you'll see a little star that you'll see prevalent throughout this book. Just want to make sure there's not one on the cover. No.
Don't believe so.
But you'll see a little star that is also prominent on the membership medal. I wanted this symbol of the Grand Army of the Republic on the monument because after the war, they needed an organization to where they could all come together, whether you were from Bridgeton, whether you're from Wisconsin, or any of the other Midwestern states, or even some of the southern states. They wanted an organization to be able to share in that camaraderie, remember the service members who they had lost during the war, some of the ones who died after the war. And another big thing that the Grand Army of the Republic was a very early proponent of that I didn't realize until this project was disability pensions.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There were soldiers, of course, who came back from the war. You have extreme examples of Private, John Brown, he loses his leg to a cannonball at First Manassas. These men of the Grand Army of the Republic, which later on the American Legion would adopt, the Veterans of Foreign Wars would adopt, etc., a championship for disability pensions for these soldiers to be able to receive fair compensation for their services for the United States.
Here in Bridgeton, one of our leading doctors in the 1870s, 80s, 90s was Dr. John F. Kimball, and he was a Civil War surgeon. When he writes back to the Bridgeton News in 1914, some of the people in town didn't know he was still alive. He was one of the first people from Bridgeton to enlist. He believes he was the first, and the previous person who they thought was the first had already died, and they didn't realize. So you see the mission changing over to advocacy the older they get, and I think that's certainly still the mission the successor organization Liam's a part of continues today.
Absolutely. It's just as important in 2020, I would argue even more important in 2020, just as it was in 1914,
Yep.
just as it was in 1866 when the GAR was formed. No matter what the date is, even though we find ourselves in a very different world than when these boys who came home in 1865 were in, the mission of remembering the dead is just as important.
I love this book. I've read all the way through it. I think it's a wonderful treasure we have. But I think, for me, the saddest part is when you consider that so many pages in this book, it's about halfway on, are empty. Not that, this is 123, 127, not that we didn't have that many veterans, but that their stories never got recorded. The ones that died abroad, the ones that came home and suffered and died in the years after the war, the ones who went to their graves with stories they never told. Sometimes they didn't want to, sometimes nobody asked. And so all the blank pages in here is something of a challenge for us that, we have the lists of who these soldiers were. And if I can come in and spend a day and come back with even a few sentences about what this veteran did, what their service was, where they served, who they fought, if I'm really lucky, I can come back with a story handed down through a family or published in a newspaper about an engagement they were in. It helps fill in the blanks on a lot of these people that are still being overlooked and that never really got the credit for the incredible bravery and really moving events of their lives to preserve the Union.
With the small amount of press that you've gotten over the last couple of years, have you had anyone from other towns in Maine reach out to you?
Yes, there have been requests that have come in from people in Bridgeton and beyond to assist with gravestones for like a great-great-great-grandfather who served, whether it's War of 1812 or Civil War, etc. Some people just say, hey, I don't know the process, but I'd like to make sure he gets a gravestone. Or even with other projects I've done, most recently with Moses Fogg, a War of 1812 veteran buried in South Harrison. If you have a grandfather, grandmother, great uncle, anybody who served in the military, if they're willing to talk about their story, talk to grandma, talk to grandpa, ask about grandma's time as a wave in World War II, talk to your grandfather about his Marine Corps service in Korea or Vietnam. Do not let their stories take up half a book. when it could take up a whole volume. Do not let their stories go to waste. Because one day, as I've heard numerous times from World War II veterans, who wish they could have talked to Grandpa about his Spanish-American War service with Teddy Roosevelt, or even their own father's service as a doughboy in World War I constantly hear, I wish I could have asked him more. Yeah. So please, if there's one thing you take away from this project, it's do what you can in your own life to talk to your loved ones about their service, so long as they're comfortable talking about it.
In symbol of purity, we offer a rose, so future generations emulate the unselfish devotion of our heroes. We give this laurel branch as a token of affection from the sons and daughters of comrades in arms, and we crown their memory with this symbol of victory. On behalf of the Grand Army of the Republic, for whose integrity and unity our comrades offered their service during the War of Rebellion, I place this flag
in a lot of the towns, you get preserved these scraps of flag or banner with political sayings on them. And here at the Historical Society, we have a Lincoln campaign banner that was made locally in 1860, and which after the war was over was put up in the Grand Army Hall and hung where the first thing you saw walking through the door, you'd see it. And it was given to the Society by the son of the last Secretary for the Post. So this was made for the campaign of 1860. We see it reads, "The Union, it must be preserved," and we'll leave it out. This is the physical sort of manifestation of the spirit that drove those boys to war. You know, it is for this Union and for the stars on this flag, this very flag. So it's preserving things like this and the stories that it tells so that we don't forget the sacrifice of those boys and our country that they fought to help preserve. Taking Edwin as an example, when he leaves Bridgeton at the close of the war out to the Dakota Territory, he spends a lot of time in what's now South Dakota, I believe, and he ended up joining one of the GAR posts out there when it was organized. And even though not from Dakota, not related to any of the boys from the companies that fought in sort of the Midwestern regiments, he was accepted in, and he's on the membership rolls of that organization, and writing letters back to the Bridgeton branch when it's formed. So,
men like with the names of Ingalls, we have Meade, we have Dodge, all these soldiers and their families, whether they served or not, they built Bridgeton. And knowing that we have a town select board that wanted to see to it that these soldiers were recognized really made me proud to be here in Bridgeton. I always will be. And the country's not really looking so good right now. I think everybody here knows that. I know, we all know it's a divisive time, but I'm not here to point fingers. I'm not here to ask you what political party you belong to, because that's not what it's about. We don't want to be divisive, because if we keep that up, we'll end up like how these men were in 1861, in a very trying period. But I don't see division here. I don't see it in Bridgeton. I don't feel it in Bridgeton, because we can all come together and support our beloved country and our community. Regardless of your background, we can all come here to honor those who gave so much. Thank you.